Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. It's a beautiful day out there. I'm excited. It always puts me in a good mood. We're going to get started in just a second. One of the things I like to do in the beginning is just share a tip for success. And if you come back over and over again, you're going to hear me talking about 7 habits for highly effective people. And this is a really important thing because that book is my favorite book, and it has solid habits in there. But one of the things that Stephen Covey, who wrote this book, puts in there is the time matrix that's out there. He talks about how to manage your time management matrix, and he defines what you could be spending your time on in 4 different categories or quadrants, right? And so he has important tasks and not important tasks, and he has urgent tasks and not urgent tasks. And so quadrant 1 is urgent and important. That's like your customer calling you, something you have to do, or your family even. There's urgent stuff and it's important. It has to be done right now. Quadrant 2, that's where we always want to be, is important but not urgent. That's also where strategic thinking and planning is, and we tend to let that suffer. And the bottom 2 quadrants, quadrant 3 and 4, are not important. One is not important and urgent, like a phone call that's just the unknown caller. You're like, oh, I wonder who that is. Or a bunch of emails without, really being client emails. And then not important and not urgent. That is something like Netflix or just binge watching TV. It's not that you don't spend time in there. My tip for you today is make sure that you're spending some time in quadrant 2 every single day. It could be 15 minutes. Just schedule something on your calendar. 15 minutes I'm going to spend in quadrant 2. A very simple way of being in quadrant 2 is at the end of your day, before you wrap up whatever you're doing, let's say 4 or 5 o'clock, and I work tons of hours as well, but let's just say 4 or 5 o'clock, you're wrapping up your day. Plan tomorrow, and not in great detail, but just plan one thing that you must get done tomorrow. That puts you into quadrant 2, which is strategic thinking and really making sure no matter what happens tomorrow, you're going to get this one strategic thing done, this one important but not urgent thing. If you do that every day, then you'll be able to start doing this on a weekly and a monthly basis, and you'll start thinking more in quadrant 2. So that's just my tip for those of you showing up early and on time. I appreciate that you do. It's fun for me. It's fun for me to start seeing people engage in the chat. But also LinkedIn lets other people know, hey, we're live. I was talking to a customer this morning and they said, it's funny how we almost always see less people registered and more people actually attending. So it's a really different dynamic than most type of events where you have this many people registering and then this many people actually attending. I literally did an event a month ago or something where people paid like almost $1,000. And 25% of the people didn't even show up. I was shocked. I was like, come, you paid me $1,000 and don't show up. I'll be happy with that. But, it's good that we're getting in here. Okay, let me turn off my little scroll bars and we'll get rocking and rolling. So in today's training, we're going to be talking about how to position your company to win recompetes. And I'll talk more about that as we go in depth. But from a high level, the government has 2 different types of contracts that come out. One are new requirements, and the other is recompete. By the way, if you've never heard this term or this way of saying this, we call it an opportunity. They call it a requirement. So the government has a requirement, the buyer has a requirement, and salespeople, companies, vendors, we have an opportunity to go after that. And so they're the same thing. You'll hear me say them different ways, but basically there's just 2 different kinds of requirements that the government has. A new requirement, we've never done this work before, et cetera, or a recompete, meaning we've been doing it for the last 5 years, paying another company, the contract's coming up for recompete. That's why we use the term recompete. Recompete contracts, the reason I like them so much, like, 100 times more than a new opportunity, is because in a recompeted contract, you're pretty much guaranteed that it's going to keep going forward. I know we got some hiccups here in early 2025 on how the government's spending, what they're prioritizing, et cetera. But the reality is, for the most part, if they paid for IT services last year, the recompete is going to happen now if that contract is expiring. Same thing with facility services, et cetera. One other thing that I really like about recompetes that's a little different. People sometimes think maybe the new requirement that the government has, it's a chance to get in there and showcase. Well, I believe that you should be showcasing innovation and giving the government new ideas when you're in there on an existing contract. You can expand that contract. This is not part of today's training, and I don't want to go too far off the base. But if you've never heard of something like this, I've won a 5-year contract, millions of dollars, and I talked to the government and was able to turn that into a 3-year contract. Same amount of money. We just accelerated the spend on it by introducing new task areas. When you've got a good relationship with a customer, you can do that. When the contract has the flexibility and the government has the need, you can do that. And so it was a way for us to be able to introduce new requirements into an existing contract. So I'm just trying to tell that story as it relates to combining new and recompetes rather than looking out there. But I don't particularly like recompetes, and you'll hear why. But for the most part, they're unpredictable, where recompetes are predictable. I don't know if I just said this, but I don't like new requirements because they're unpredictable. The other thing about recompetes that I really like, and I probably should have slid this to the future slide here, is that it enables me to be able to fill my pipeline. You can fill your pipeline. I talk about you should be writing 4 proposals every month, right? And it depends on where you're at. But I'm telling you right now, even if you're brand new with no experience, you can be doing that. You just do it as a subcontractor on somebody else's team. So you make sure you have enough relationships with people who would value, for example, somebody who does, let's say, SharePoint development, just because I happen to think of that, right? If you do SharePoint development, but you really can't win a prime contract at all, just go find a bunch of companies that would value having you on their team, and you can start going after it. Well, if you're a company that can go after prime contracts, so you can be looking at recompetes and fill your pipeline and have predictable opportunities that you can pretty much identify when the RFP is going to drop, when the contract will be awarded, because you'll just look at the expiration of a recompeted contract. You'll know when that contract's going to end, and so you pretty much can guarantee when that new revenue will start for you. So that is another huge reason I like recompetes, where compare that to new requirements, you just have none of that predictability. But finding these recompetes, right, it's not enough, because we could go into SAM and see an RFP that's due now and start pursuing it, or we could go into FPDS, which I'll talk about, and see an opportunity we want to go after that's going to expire, right, and then put it in our pipeline and do nothing but write a proposal. Well, your chances of winning are very small. So you need to sit there and position yourself. And this is the purpose of today's training, is I'm talking about positioning yourself for that win. This is capture. Right? This is what we call capture, is once you've identified an opportunity that you want to go after, what can you do to increase your likelihood of winning? And that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit today. Thanks for engaging in the chat. Make sure you do. This is your community, right? It's our community. It's mine too. But I bring you together for the training and the networking. Right now, we don't want to go it alone. Even if we're just touching base with other people and kind of saying, oh, what are you working on? Oh, I'm working on this. We're moving forward. Don't go it alone. Engage with people when you find them. If you're on YouTube, make sure you come over to LinkedIn. This is where we can engage each other. Okay, so let's talk about winning recompetes in the federal agency, or more importantly, how to position your company, things you can do to position your company to go after those recompetes. I'm going to break today's training down into 4 sections. The main advantages of recompetes over new requirements. Second thing is how to find recompete opportunities, and that's going to be an FPDS. Third one is steps to take with government personnel. What can you do with the federal buyer? And then counter to that, what can you do with industry partners that are out there? And I'll walk you through it. So that's what we're going to cover down on today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I am the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, co-founder of GovCon in a Box, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and after I got out of the Army, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting, it's not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results, and this is what I want for you. It's literally why I'm teaching you kind of how to go after recompetes. This is a process that I'll be talking to you about today. Again, if you haven't connected with me on LinkedIn, make sure you do. And if you're connecting on LinkedIn, by the way, you can follow me and you don't even have to connect. Or if you connect, make sure you send me a little note. Just hey, I saw you in the training. Love to connect. That's all I need. Just a little reference on there. And then if you haven't tracked on tomorrow's training, please register, by the way. We have almost more people here today attending live than are registered to attend. And so just let me know you're coming. Tomorrow I'm going to be talking about, I can't remember what that is. How you can sit there and do sales in 1 hour a day. I feel like people are always saying they're busy. I'm like, well, give me an hour. If you give me an hour, I will give you the tasks that you can do. It's not going to be everything that you need to do, but it'll be a good use of 1 hour. Kind of that quadrant too I talked about if you were here early. But that's tomorrow's training, how to sit there and do sales in 1 hour a day in the federal market. If you haven't subscribed to my newsletter, please subscribe to the Government Contracting Success newsletter. We're well over 23,000 people in there, and I would love to have you in there as we continue to share content I think is valuable to you. If you haven't checked your own federal visibility score, make sure you do. I want to congratulate the companies that are in the 100 Club. These are companies out of the 370,000 small businesses registered to sell to the federal government. These 157 are the companies that have filled out their profiles on the government's tools, the government sites, in a way that makes them fully visible to the federal buyer. And so a score out of 1 out of 100, these people are in the 100 Club, super excited for them. Say 100 Club rocks if you're in the 100 Club or you support the 100 Club. You can go to govconinabox.com and check out your score. It's free. When you go there, you can click on your score, and I give you step-by-step guidance on how to improve your score, plus little videos for each one. I'll give you an example of somebody who just did that 2 weeks ago now. I think she just sent me an email, but she had done it. She'd done what we talked about, what I guided her on to get that visibility up. And then she said she was starting to get, she got invited by a contracting officer who reached out, said, I saw you and I want to invite you in. And she attributed it directly to this 100 score, right? I don't mean they're going to come flooding in, but I guarantee you, if you're not visible, they can't find you or reject you. So go check out your score. Okay, I got a lot to talk about like I always do. And I got 28, that's wrong, 18 minutes, something like that. We'll be picking up speed. Let's just talk about first the main advantages of recompeted contracts or opportunities over new opportunities. Again, new opportunities, the government calls them requirements. So they're new requirements for them. They've never paid for them before. Somebody has a new need. An example of a new requirement could be a new building they need to build compared to maintenance on existing buildings, or it could be new IT software development or software application that they want built compared to existing applications they've been managing for years. So that's kind of the difference on there. And as you move forward, right, Recompete, one of the first advantages I put here is that you have a known scope and requirement. If it's a new requirement, the government's still trying to figure it out. They are very kind of unclear on what they're looking for. But a recompete, the scope is pretty much locked. You can go in and find the past PWS and see the task areas, et cetera. Yes, if it was a 5-year contract and they go into the next 5 years, they should be modifying that scope based on their experience. But for the most part, you know what that work is going to be. The second advantage of recompetes over new requirements or new opportunities is that the acquisition approach is known. And we know the competition or the amount of competition. And what I'm talking about, and I might show you in a second here, but when you go to research existing opportunities, these are going to be the recompetes, you can find out which agency was doing it, how they awarded it, which NAICS code, which contract vehicle. So that acquisition approach, all the details go into the how did they procure these services. And I can go in and see how many competitors or how many offers did the government get. These are really to your advantage. You can look in and see where was it a crowded market, not a crowded market. I know the pricing, right? I can look in there and see that here's the previous PWS, the previous scope of work, and then here was the final winner's price. Well, if you know what you're doing on the work, then that stuff is really easy to begin to marry. For example, I knew what I was doing in my last company. We sold SharePoint. So I only went and looked for SharePoint-based recompetes. And if I saw a SharePoint migration for a particular agency, and then I saw a total contract value of $10 million or something, not only could I see that it was $2 million a year on a 5-year contract, but then I could sit there and figure out, well, this is what you're looking to get done, and this is what you paid for it. And I can begin to understand that pricing better, which positions me a lot better going forward. Also, it enables me to maybe try to undercut the incumbent by being really aggressive on the pricing. And I don't mean LPTA, but I mean, do they really need that much to get this work done, or has a lot changed in 5 years since they priced it out? The fourth one, you can ghost the incumbent or beat the incumbent. But ghosting is getting in there and researching that incumbent because there is an incumbent. You can look at them and begin to figure out, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and ghost them. So minimizing their strengths and kind of shining a light on their weaknesses, et cetera. You can do a lot of research in there. And you can also ghost them by seeing what people are working for that company. This is normal work, right? Or normal sales. You're competing against the incumbent. But because there's an incumbent on a recompete, it makes it easier than a new requirement where you really have no idea who's going after that opportunity. You can guess, but nowadays, competitive research in that way is unrealistic because you'll look at 5 or 10 people and go, these companies are going after it. And then 5 or 10 will just come out of the woodwork and you didn't even know about them. But with an existing one, you know for sure who the incumbent is. That's really important. And then the last one is new requirements tend to slide to the right. And that's why I put them in mini quotes, right? They slide to the right. What it means is if you look at a forecast, the forecast says, this is going to drop in March of 2025. If it's a new opportunity, I can guarantee it's heading to the right. It's going to go 3 months or 6 months because new requirements, there's all sorts of activity that has to go on that never has gone on before on this requirement. And they, more often than not, the government gets caught up for whatever reason, there's delays. On recompetes, there's far less delays. There's sometimes these extensions where they have to give themselves an extension. But for the most part, recompeted contracts that are expected to end in March of 2025, end in March of 2025, and that new contract starts right there. So all of that is predictable, and there's less chance of it sliding to the right. That's really important when you predict your revenue and your sales activity. You can't keep having these opportunities in your pipeline, keep pushing to the right, because how can anybody else in your company depend on that opportunity in the pipeline? Yes, you want to go after new opportunities when they're slam dunk, but fill your pipeline with recompete, reliable opportunities, and you'll make it a lot easier for everybody else in your company if you're bigger, right, to be able to predict what's going to happen. Hey, do me a favor before I go forward, put recompete rocks into the chat if you understand what I'm saying, the difference between recompete and new, and you see the value of pursuing opportunities that have been awarded before that you can do and you wish you won. Put recompetes rock in the chat. Just let me know you're tracking on that. Okay, so let's talk about how to find it. I'm going to go into FPDS really quick, but you want to target slam dunks. These are contracts you wish you had won. You don't want to track a lot of stuff. You're never going to really win that way. That's not the way to build a business. You want to niche down onto your expertise, and then as you get more and more experience as a company, you add more expertise that's related. But you don't want to have a bunch of stuff in a bunch of different customers. It's just not sustainable. The second thing is target specific agencies. So the Army or FEMA or maybe DHS if you expand. Target set-asides. You might go in there and say, I want to go after opportunities that were previously awarded to 8A or to a woman-owned small business because the likelihood of them doing it again is good, and I'm one of those tags, right? One of my favorite things to target are things that were awarded other than small, meaning large business. I try to look for things that are in my sweet spot, in my area, but let's say they were $10 million contracts or something and somehow slid out to the large. I go in and try to aggressively find them and pursue them out there so that I can, maybe push them down to small business set aside at least. And then the last one is target size. You want to be able to target contracts that are the size that you can go after. So 5 million, 10 million, whatever your range is. Okay, let me show you FPDS really quick. I just want to show you how I go in. I lost my slide. There it goes. So I'm just going in. I just started at FPDS. So anybody who's new to this, you start at fpds.gov. You just hit something into the search. I never care what I put here because I come over here and I do a brand new search. And in here, and I'm going to do this really fast. I'm not teaching you anything special. I just want to show you a couple of things that I'm looking at. So the first thing I'm going to look for is description. And here, I'm just going to try SharePoint as an example. And let me expand it. SharePoint support. Let's see if I can narrow it down. Okay, so I got 2,900. Now let me see if I can find in this same search. I'm just going to do estimate. I think it's estimated completion date. And let's say it's estimated to end in, well, let's just say September, September 30th. I'm making the window really tight. I should kind of back that up, but let's say September 30th to, let's just say December. Hopefully, I should have done a little prep before on the test, but let's see if there's any. Okay, so there's 3 contracts that are out there that are expected to end. So if I look at this one here, this is a contract that I'm looking at. Say I'm doing SharePoint. I can come in here and find contracts. So the first thing I'm going to do is scroll down to the bottom here. I want to make sure that right here, it's what I want. And this looks perfect. An IT SharePoint admin support contract. That's what I want. And then I can see it was set aside. This is what I meant by, I can see that it was set aside to SDVOs, and look at the 17 offers in there. That was a really aggressive kind of contract. And if I come back up here, this 393 for 1 year, to me, I would be willing to bet that's at least 2 people. They might even have 3 people on that contract. But I just found this, right? And not to spend a lot of time here, the reason I'm showing it to you is that's how I go find recompetes. I go into FPDS and I look at that data. I've got all sorts of training on FPDS you can find. I want to stay on track with my next 2 slides, but go into FPDS, explore looking for recompetes in there. Again, all I chose was the date range. And so I'm looking for contracts. I'm looking for contracts that are ending in 2025. They're being recompeted now. But then I can do month by month. If I'm trying to fill my pipeline, I can say, show me October, now show me November, now show me December. And theoretically, those are all staggered out backwards to the left of the contract expiring and back to when the RFP drops. I know that's a lot in there. Go watch a previous video I did on FPDS and how to use it. Hey, I just want to thank our sponsors really quick, Graham, Steel Toed, and Silk River. These people are making this training possible as we move forward. They continue to support us. We appreciate it. There's room for other sponsors. We'd love to have you support us. Graham does staffing and especially American Sign Language Services. Steel Toed, talk to them about your CMFC needs. In particular, if you're thinking about DoD and CMFC certifications are necessary. And then Silk River Capital, reach out to those guys. If you're looking for different finance options, they do small business lending in the government. Okay, let's talk about the next 2 slides are about steps you can take to start positioning yourself. And what I mean by positioning yourself is if you find an opportunity, like I just found that SharePoint one, and let's say I want to go after it. Well, I need to get in the government door. We call it inside the wire, right? I need to figure out how to get in there. And then the other thing is, and I need to build relationships with federal buyers and then industry. So I'll talk about industry in a second. But some simple steps that you can take to start positioning yourself within the federal agency is begin by identifying key stakeholders. I've done a lot of training. You can go find this, but I describe stakeholders as focuses or receptivity. These are people willing to talk with you like a small business professional. And then focuses, and by the way, I've also got program managers who are focuses or receptivity, but they're in another area of the agency. That's really good too. So focuses or receptivity are willing to talk to you. Focuses a dissatisfaction on these focuses of are these people with the need. So that SharePoint opportunity, I would be looking for who is that program office? How do I get in? Then I would also be looking for who's using SharePoint within that agency, because those are also focuses of dissatisfaction. I might go, hey, how well are you using it? Blah, 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 blah. And then focuses of power is the last one. That's your contracting officer, contract specialist. The second thing I would do is once I find these people, I would do 2 types of meetings with them. I would try to do capability briefing where I'm just getting in. If I'm looking at an opportunity that's expiring in the end of the year, I might plan it out a little bit and say, first, let me do a capability briefing. Then let me come back and talk to them about SharePoint and the advances of SharePoint. Right now, SharePoint is going through this major shift from classic to modern view or something. whatever it is, I would be going back in there and trying to talk to them about it, which is my third bullet, right? Targeting them with marketing material and being a thought leader to the very agency buyers that I want to reach. So I just talked about how SharePoint is moving from old classic view to the new modern view, and they have to do it now because Microsoft's cutting off support. Well, I would be getting, hey, here's 10 tips to think about when you move forward. You send them a little video, send them a little checklist, whatever it is. You can send marketing material. You don't have to wait for an RFI. And so what you're trying to do with these first 3 bullets is to build relationships. You're trying to get in the door and build relationships. And the last one, I just mentioned this, is respond to sources sought. Even respond to sources sought that are a little bit outside your area if you can touch on your area, but it's in the target agency that this recompeted opportunity is that you want to go after. So I just showed that was Bureau of Land Management, I think, for SharePoint. I might look around and go, well, is there business process improvement type RFIs out there? And then I can respond saying, hey, we can do that with SharePoint or something. But you want to let them know that you're there either through sources sought responses or just letting that KO, the contracting officer, program office know, I want this work and I'm going to be knocking on your door to go after it. Okay, and then the last slide here on this section is steps you can take with industry. So one group of people are the government buyers themselves, federal employees. The other group are small and large businesses winning inside of your target agency with this recompete that you're trying to pursue, right? And you repeat this with every opportunity you're pursuing. But you want to identify small and large businesses that are winning at the agency. I describe them also as like companies, or they have services that are related to what you do. So if I was describing SharePoint, then I would be also looking for companies doing network engineering, or maybe even some HR type people, or people who are in the business units, because SharePoint is a tool that supports them. I would definitely be looking to identify who the incumbent is and tracking that down. And then I want to begin to understand and get in there through conversations. I want to talk about the incumbent. I want to learn, how are they perceived within that agency? You do this by talking to the federal buyer and you casually talk about it. And you do this with their competitors who are in there. You want to also learn about how the agency operates, right? Every agency, every program office is different. And so when you find these companies to engage with, make sure you're finding them in the agency, but also try to find them lower down, like in this exact office. If that SharePoint contract was awarded by the OCIO, the Office of Chief Information Officer, then I would be trying to get in and find winners inside that program office. But I want to learn how that agency operates. What are they doing? Are there particular things that they do that are standard operating procedures? I can get some of those documents, or I can learn about them in order to go back to the federal buyer and ask them to get a copy. And the last one is they can be able to introduce you to other agency stakeholders. So as you're trying to do the slide before here, getting in to meet federal buyers, talk to any of these businesses. If I'm going after a recompete, I'm looking for like 10 or 20 companies that are in that target area that I want to get into, so that I can find people. I don't need to find a lot of people. I just need a lot of companies to find the, like, let's say 4 or 5 that are going to help me get traction in there. Okay, so it's funny, if you see me look down, my phone is right there and I keep looking down to watch the time. I want to end on time. Here's what I want you to remember from today's training. When you look at a recompeted opportunity, right, you want to go find contracts that you wish you would won. Don't find contracts that you think you might be able to do. Find ones where you're like, man, that is us. I wish we had won that. And then engage with the federal buyer and engage with the industry winners in there. That's called capture. Engage with them so that you can learn about those agencies and learn about that particular piece of work. When you do this on every single opportunity you have in the pipeline. If you can't do this on the opportunities that are in your pipeline or the opportunities you want to pursue, then get rid of those opportunities, because you're going to go with a half-baked proposal if you don't actually engage within that agency that you're trying to talk to. Hopefully this makes sense. Just remember, right, when I talk about government contracting, it's not a secret, it's just a process. This part that I'm talking about literally is the process that's out there for you. Hey, if you're interested, by the way, in us helping you with BD and capture coaching, we've got 2 new slots that are available. My team can support. Just reach out to me. I tend to look for companies doing 2 million plus so that they can afford it and they're on the right track. Otherwise, keep coming back for the training, because that's why I do it, is so I can reach the most amount of people out there and really help out. So, all right, we're done with today's training. Don't forget about coming back tomorrow, and I will give you tasks for how to do sales activity in 1 hour a day, so the rest of your day can be distracted, but at least you get sales activities going on. I will see you in the next training.